Hi, I'm Dan from Ozone Cyclery. In this tutorial video, I'm going to teach you how to select and cut the bamboo for your Sven 27.5 Randonneur. In the previous video, we discussed how to pick the design, measure your body to find the right size, and took a good look at the technical drawings that we'll use while building the bike. This is an absolutely critical step, so if you haven't seen that video, go back now and watch it. Here's a brief overview of what we're going to see in this video. First, we'll just discuss some basic stuff that you need to know first. Then we'll choose the bamboo tubes we like the best and mark which part of which tube we want to go where in the bike. Then we'll take a break, give it a good think, and maybe change our minds about one or two things. When we're absolutely sure we know which part of which bamboo tube we want to go where in the bike, we'll measure each section exactly and cut it to length. So in this process, the most important thing is selecting the bamboo. Cutting the bamboo is simple. The focus of this video is going to be on how to decide which piece to put as the down tube, as the top tube, as the seat tube, seat stays, and chain stays. The first step of this process is to check the bamboo diameter drawing. On this drawing, there's a recommendation for the bamboo diameter that you should pick for each part of the bike. It's important to get close to this because each bike is designed a bit differently for a different purpose. Also, the different sizes of bikes have different diameters. The smaller ones are smaller and the bigger ones have bigger diameters. But mostly this is just a recommendation that should be taken with a grain of salt. It should be plus minus 3 or 4 millimeters. It's never exactly right, and that's okay. So the most important factors that you should keep in mind while choosing your bamboo is the following. The top tube should be the prettiest. This is the piece of the bike that you see the most. And if you find a pattern in the bamboo that you like the most, then try to put it on the top of the top tube right here. This is the only part of the frame you can actually see while you're riding. The down tube should be the thickest. Bamboo varies both in outer diameter and wall thickness. Put the thickest, beefiest part of the bamboo next to the bottom bracket down here. The seat tube has to fit the seat post. It doesn't really matter if it's thinner or thicker. It just matters that your seat post sleeve, which is 30 millimeters in diameter, can fit on the inside of the bamboo tube. Also, the nodes of the bamboo are usually not important, but in this case, you want to make sure not to put a node anywhere in the top of your seat tube, because then your seat post won't go through. Pick the bamboo such that there's a node somewhere down here, and the rest of it up here is open. To make the seat stays and the chain stays, you're going to split the bamboo. So if you have a piece that's already cracked or split, then you can use that really well for the seat stays and the chain stays. It is convenient to pick bamboo pieces for these two that are straight, because when you're sanding them down to glue them together again, if the bamboo itself is curved, that makes that part of the process that much more complex. Everyone always asks about the nodes of the bamboo, these pieces here. They are actually strong points, not weak points, so don't worry about them being weak. You don't need to get rid of them for any reason. When bamboo grows, it's really long. That long tube needs to have a perpendicular inner structural support to make sure that the tube itself doesn't crush as the bamboo is swaying in the wind. For the bikes, it doesn't really matter. When you're absolutely ready to cut your bamboo, there's just a couple of simple things to pay attention to. One, definitely wear a dust mask. I also recommend safety glasses, but bamboo dust is carcinogenic. You do not want to breathe it in. When you're using a Japanese saw, they are a pull saw, not a push saw, so they only cut when you're pulling them. And make sure to use the entire length of the blade. There's a very nice saying in German. It is, Hammersägeschwanz benutzt man ganz. Now we're to the point where you're actually going to measure and saw the pieces. For this step, you need a vise, a Japanese saw, a cloth tape measure, a measuring caliper, vinyl tape or painter's tape, safety glasses, a dust mask, the technical drawings, and a pen, highlighter, and marker. Deciding which piece goes where. Here we go. So first make a preliminary selection of bamboo. I picked 3 poles here, even though I know I'll need only 1.5 of them. And I'm going to use my down tube diameter as the reference because it's the biggest one. Don't forget your measuring caliper, like I did. And I'm going to measure this one first. So I'm looking for 43 millimeters, and this one is like 40. So it's a bit small. This one is more like 45. I like that. I like 45. And this one is a bit like 41. So that one's okay too. So the first one I'm going to set to the side. I don't need it. The second one, it's got a crack and a burn spot. Other than these 2 flaws, I like it the most. It's got the most interesting pattern. It's the largest diameter. And the third one is a bit boring, in my opinion, but it's about the right size. It'll work. So I've got the other one with the burn spot that I'm going to use first. And whatever doesn't fit in the burn spot, I'll use the other one. I'm going to mark these flaws so I don't forget about them. I'm going to mark them with tape. You can also use a marker to mark them, but you might not be able to get it off again afterwards, so tape is the safe way to go. Vinyl tape or painter's tape both work really well. We use vinyl tape because it doesn't bond with epoxy, so later on, this crack is not a problem. The little crack, we can fill it again with epoxy later. Yeah, so we use the vinyl tape in a lot of places because it doesn't cause problems with the epoxy. This crack is a good spot for the chainstays or the seat stays. And this burn spot, I'm going to cut it out and throw it away. This area is beautiful. I love this pattern the most. I think I want to make that my top tube. So, starting with the down tube, I'm going to feel, you can feel which end is heavier, and that's going to be the end. It's lower down in the bamboo and has a thicker wall. So I want the thickest, beefiest piece to be my down tube, to be right next to the bottom bracket. Don't crush your measuring caliper. Getting ready to cut it with the vise. As you can see, this was cut on the node, so it's hard to tell what the wall thickness is. When you cut it on the node, it doesn't represent the correct wall thickness. They cut it on the node for shipping because it doesn't crack as much that way. So I'm going to cut the node off just to look at it. My table is wobbly. When you clamp it, don't clamp it too hard. You can crush it. Cut it halfway through, flip it over, and cut from the other side. I'll explain why later. So, look at that beautiful pattern. What a beautiful fractal pattern the fibers of the bamboo make. So check this out. That's a pretty beefy wall. On the other end, you can see it's significantly thinner. So that's like 4 millimeters, where the diameter of the tube is like 45. Frequently, the tube diameter gets smaller as you go to the top, but depending, it might not. The wall thickness, however, here is significantly thicker down there, like 7. 7 is a beautiful number, and 45 approximately. So this end is clearly to be my down tube. So I'm going to mark it approximately at 614. Again, this is not where I'm going to cut it. This is just where I'm going to mark it with tape. And I'm going to take my time to think about it before I cut it. I'm going to mark everything with tape first, give it a good think before I start cutting. Write the name of the piece, or you will forget which one is which and mix them up. Down tube. All right, moving up the bamboo. My next piece has a crack. Look at this, she's fixing the wobbly table. Good job. Perfect. So this cracked piece I'm going to use as the chainstays, 361. So I'm going to mark approximately 361, just see what happens. Now it could be also checking the diameter of these pieces. Each tube on the drawing, it also says the approximate diameter that it should be, but it doesn't really matter. I'm going to use these pieces anyway, starting with the down tube to get it approximately right. The other one that's important, oh look, that's bent. Not quite optimal. The other piece where the diameter is important is the seat tube, because the seat post has to fit inside. Other than that, it's kind of just a matter of taste. So I'm marking this one. You need, for this design, for the chainstays, you need 2 pieces, and for the seat stays, you need 1 piece. Because of the way you split them and glue them back together, I'll explain that in the video about splitting the bamboo better. It's different for different designs. Write on the piece which piece it is, or you will mix them up. So I'm trying to get my second chainstay without running into this burn spot, but it's not working. So I'm going to measure this more exactly to see how much I actually need. I'm trying to get both of my chainstays out of there. If a little bit of the burn spot is used, it's not such a big deal. But it's cutting pretty deep into that burn spot. That's not what I wanted, but I'm doing it anyway. And here's a spoiler for you. I'm going to change my mind later. Write on the piece which piece it is, or you will mix them up. Alrighty. Look at that. Beautiful. It looks like flames. This is definitely my top tube. I love it. So my top tube, about 500. And it looks like I've decided just to use that burn spot anyway, against my own better judgment. Spoiler alert, I'm going to change my mind. Good thing I didn't just cut it, or I couldn't change my mind later. Write the name of the tube on the tube, or you will mix them up. If you write with a marker directly on the bamboo, you can usually get it off with acetone, but sometimes no. So I prefer writing on the tape. All right, my next piece, my seat tube. Now don't forget that the seat tube, the nodes are important. You have to make sure not to have a node near the top of the seat tube, or your seat post won't go through. Now I'm looking at this and thinking, how's this going to work? It's not going to work. I can't get my seat tube out of this piece. So, no seat tube for you. This is going to be my seat stays. Write the name on the piece, or you will mix them up. Seat tube. Seat stays. Seat stays. See, I even mixed them up already. That piece will get thrown away. Spoiler alert, I'm going to change my mind. So, what do we have left? Just the seat tube. Check the pattern. That fits. I like it. Different tubes, even from the same bamboo plant, can look different. So, take a look at the diameter for the seat tube. In this case, it is actually important. We got to make sure that the seat post sleeve fits on the inside. Should be 41, and it's about 41. Should work. And my length? Oh wait, look at this. I cut it on the node. You can't put a seat tube through there. I'll have to cut this node off. This is an old, dull saw. I need a new one. And so it's splintering a bit. Don't worry about that, because remember that every end of every bamboo piece will get laminated into the joint. So some flaws like that, a couple centimeters of flawed end, you won't see it anyway. So now I need 476. I've got this nice long open segment at the top to make sure my seat post can go through. Write the name on the piece, or you will mix them up. Now, you can see this piece is a bit bent. Some bamboo pieces are even more bent. I like that. I actually seek out bent pieces to build bikes with because it looks cool. Only on the chain stays and the seat stays, where you have to split them and glue them back together, does it cause a problem. So, now take a break. Make a tea. Watch a pot boil. This is important because you made preliminary decisions, you marked everything temporarily, and clear your mind. Think about what you just did. This is your last chance to change your mind. After you cut them, you can't go back. Now that I'm sitting there and looking at these, I decide that burned spot, not cool. I don't want to use it. And I come up with a better plan. So here it is. Here's my better plan. I'm going to take the seat stays and put them on that split spot instead of the chain stays. Now look how easy it is for me to just pull this tape off and move it. It would be a lot more effort to wipe away marker with acetone and write everything again. So that's still my top tube. Here's this burn spot. I'm going to throw it away. Now you'll notice that what I'm doing is I'm giving myself more space than I need for both the seat stays and the top tube, and that's okay. The tape isn't exact. The tape is just to give you an idea. So there's my split spot, and that's now going to be my seat stays, which makes sense because they have to be split anyway. Seat stays. Down tube stays where it is. Seat stays on the split spot. More space than I need. Burned spot gets thrown away. And my top tube now, it's way longer than my top tube needs to be. That's fine. I want to give myself creative freedom to pick the section of that I like the best. My seat tube, I'm going to leave the way it is. I like it already. And my chain stays, I'm going to move them to this other piece of bamboo. So I'm measuring just to see approximately what it is going to look like. And my chain stays, I'm going to make them both look the same. So I'm going to mirror the pattern. This location of the node, I'm going to mirror it onto the other side over here, so that both my seat stays look about the same. Yeah. So now I'm sure that's what I want to do. Cleaning up a bit, getting organized, and putting on my dust mask. These 3M dust masks are great. That's a P3 filter. I also recommend safety goggles, although in this step they're not critical. These actual respirator face masks are a lot more comfortable than the simple paper ones because they don't fog up your glasses. You frequently forget you even have them on. I've got a whole dust collection system in my workshop. It's a bit over the top. I don't really need it for this step, but it's there. Might as well use it. I've breathed in enough bamboo dust. I'm done with that. .3M makes good dust masks. Träger makes good dust masks. Turn the vise around so that it's not bumping me in the leg all the time. Now here's a little secret. I'm jumping ahead in the drawings to this one called tube end sand. That's how much you're going to sand the bamboo tubes. That's also how long the joints are going to be. Now I'm going to line up one of these nodes with the end of my joint. 80 millimeters, says in the drawing. So I'm putting one of my nodes at that spot. Inspect everything one more time. It looks like I'm going to have to move my tape. I'm going to check to make sure that my seat stays still have enough space. Yep, no problem. Now check out the direction of the pattern here. It looks like flames, and I'm going to make them go from the head tube joint back, both on the down tube and the top tube. Both of the poles in the head tube joint, the top tube and the down tube, I'm going to line up the nodes with the joint. Measure exactly. I keep saying that things don't have to be exact. They are just approximate, but in this case, measure the length of the tube exactly. Every size of every different bike has different measurements. All right. The seat stays. So I'm checking out my top tube now, 91, lining that up to one of the nodes. Oops, shit, sorry. And look at the direction of the pattern again, this flame pattern, putting it from the steer tube joint back, lining up one of those nodes with the end of the joint. That's only possible because the bike is designed in the first place. It's possible to improvise a bike, but then you don't know where the joints are going to land. Now my top tube, about 500. Finally. Time to start cutting. Don't need to measure anything else. Cut from the top, halfway through. Flip it over. Cut the other half. You know how I said I don't need to measure anything else? Well, guess what? Measure twice, cut once. Top two. I'm just going to check to make sure I didn't make a stupid mistake. It's surprising how many pieces come out 10 centimeters too short. Cut the top, flip it, cut the rest. When you just cut straight through, there's always a bit at the bottom that the last little bit that you would cut tends to split out, and that makes aesthetic problems. Finally, I get to throw away this burnt spot. My seat stays. Measure twice, cut once. So you can tell that I've taken a lot of care to make careful decisions here. I've measured many times and changed my mind. It's not necessary to be so careful. If you want to just grab your bamboo, measure it, hack it apart, not pay any attention to what goes where, at least make the down tube the beefiest piece. If that's the only thing you pay attention to, that's fine. Now look, I'm about to cut way out here. Nah, make it easy on yourself. Put it next to the vise, it holds it better that way. Make your cuts look like happy cuts. The down tooth. Measure twice, cut once. Cut from the top, flip it over, cut the rest. A pencil holder. Now look, this little crack I was worried about, turns out it's going to get laminated into the joint. You're not going to see it at all. It'll get completely covered down at the bottom next to the bottom bracket. Back to measuring again. Happy with my seat tube? Did you see that one-handed pen cap technique? Now my mark landed right on the tape. It's okay. You can cut tape. My chainstays, I'm also going to line them up with the dropout joint. So I check the length of the dropout joint, and I'm lighting up the node so that it lands right at the end of the joint on both of them. I just decided to check the seat post sleeve, and it fits, no problem. Measure twice, cut once. Oops. This piece of bamboo tends to splinter a bit more. I don't know why. No worries, it'll get covered up. If you have a big splinter, just break it off. It'll get covered up so long as it's short enough. If it runs too long, then it'll come out and then you'll see it beyond the joint. If you just break it off, it's fine. Cut from the top, flip it, cut it again. Drop it on the floor, pick it back up. We're on a roll. Measure twice, cut once. Wait, what? 14 centimeters? That doesn't make sense. Make sure you're using the right side of the measuring tape. Cut it. Flip it. Cut it. That's it. I did it. Dump off the dust. What just happened? A ghost. Now this is the step where you really need a dust mask, and it's really not bad to have a dust collector, especially because you don't have to even go through the effort of turning around and opening up the trash can. Away. Now, check this out. Can you tell which piece goes where? I can't. I can't remember a thing. Good thing we marked them. Those are trash. That one's burned. That one's too short. That's the down tube. That's my seat tube. Seat stay. Top tube. Chain stays. Look at that. It's a bike. It's a bike.